Bill West has been involved in edtech for over 30 years. After graduating with a computer science degree from Indiana University Bloomington in 1987, he went to work for Andersen Consulting on an initiative that was at the time described as CBT, or computer-based training. Since West has worked for the .com era UNext.com, Xerox, eLearning, and eLearning Brothers, to name a few. He has also launched and sold his own custom corporate training design company, Option 6. Later, he founded the Learning Alliance, a team comprised of 5 corporate training, design, and development companies. Their collective C-suite includes numerous pioneers of education technology, from developers of PLATO and Atari to people who helped write the SCORM and xAPI protocols. West's latest venture, Regatta VR, creates VR-based corporate training initiatives. My name is Henry Kronk for eLearningInside. This is edtechnically. This week, I got a hold of West on the phone and began the interview by asking him how he got involved in edtech in the first place.
Yeah, it's actually a funny story. My timing was really good. I had, as part of my degree in computer science, I had 2 cooperative internships with IBM. And part of what I did at IBM is I taught courses on their 4th generation computing languages to people. I really enjoyed that part of the job. So when I graduated, I went to work for Arthur Andersen. They were forming this new organization called Education Consulting, which eventually became Change Management Services. And computer-based training was something they all were starting to get into. The PC had just come out, so all of a sudden the capability of creating CBT programs without a mainframe was there. And I was surrounded by all these instructional designers, and I was the only one who literally knew what the C stood for in CBT. They were all in the T area, and they came to me and they said, "Hey, have you ever done any CBT?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I think I have," because I knew I taught computer programs at IBM. I had no idea what CBT was at the time. But my timing was good, and I fit in well with the team, and we ended up winning our first international award back in 1989. And then after that, it just, I just got passed from one CBT project to the next, and got groomed into, what happened during the .com era, where I just, once again, got really lucky and came across the right deal in eLearning.
From there, West went on to found his own e-learning development company, Option 6.
So the story goes that I was in Bloomington, Indiana. I'd been assigned here when I was with Ernst & Young. And this .com out of Chicago, UNext.com, was building an online MBA program. And it was supposed to be the Ivy League online ABA program. They had Stanford, Columbia, Carnegie Mellon, several schools that just, top in their fields. And they would contribute to faculty, and UNext would build out the curriculum. And they decided to open up the course development operations here in Bloomington. I happened to be in Bloomington at the time, and the partner that I worked for at Andersen for that first CBT program back in '88 was the VP of development at UNext. So literally crossed paths in Bloomington. 2 days later, I had an offer, and I led the course production facility here. And it was great. And for 18 months, we were all on a high. The .com, everything was on a high, and we had huge budgets, and everybody was looking at stock options, and the courses we created were amazing. But as we all know, the market collapsed, and UNext was really poised to go public. All of a sudden, went from 300 people to 25 people overnight. I then looked in the faces of the 40 people in my facility here in Bloomington, and I said, we've got a couple different options in front of us. And most of which meant we just kind of go on our merry way. But the 6th option is that we band together and try to form something based on what we've all learned and build a company. And so the idea of the 6th option, or eventually called Option 6, was formed out of that, sort of the phoenix from the fire. And 9 years later, it grew from, my $100,000 mortgage on my house to a $6 million business that I was able to sell to a public company.
After that, West went to work on numerous initiatives. Beginning a few years ago, he got another idea. He recognized that there were a few big players in the corporate training design sector and a lot of boutique houses doing smaller projects. If someone could combine these into one entity, West reasoned, these boutique designers could go after the same contracts as the big guys. He called the resulting company the Learning Alliance.
Yeah, so the creation of Learning Alliance was to band people who are the absolute experts in their field together in a way as a true alliance, at the very strategic level. CEOs getting together on a regular basis, everybody using consistent revenue-generating models, much more than just a referral agreement or partnership. And then as the big deals come up, we all join together and we contribute to the proposal as one entity, the Learning Alliance, as opposed to multiple entities. That gives the client a singular entity that they could contract and consider. And it worked. We won a massive 4-year agreement with one of the world's largest banks. And we've done an extremely good job because the individual companies bring capabilities that are really, really strong. One of the companies, as you know, is a game company, for example. Another is a high-tech programming company. So they all bring unique expertise that I can leverage. At the same time, if I need 50 people for a big project, I can get them quickly because we bring the overall strength. Core Access is the one partner that has a lot of people that I can pull from. And so it's been really successful at that level.
In December of last year, West launched his latest venture, Regatta VR. The company creates custom VR corporate training modules, and it was initially a part of the Learning Alliance. This month, however, West decided to spin it off into its own more or less separate entity.
The Learning Alliance deals with the larger companies and the larger accounts, the way I described. So it's got dedicated people, all focused on a singular account, and it's managed in a certain way. As a result, managing an account is a lot different than a boutique might approach managing a portfolio of projects. As the Alliance gains additional clients, each one of those clients are going to be larger company with larger, consistent, multi-year accounts and following that same business model. The concentration on VR is a lot different. It's an emerging technology. It's fastly growing. It's going to be multiple clients with a few projects at the time. It needs to have a different type of P&L. It needs to have a different type of leadership structure. And it can't become too encumbered with the ebbs and flows that might occur with the Alliance. So we made a decision to run it as a separate business, allow us to have its own staff. There's certain professionals that it needs that the Alliance doesn't need, such as 3D modelers and Unity programmers and such. I would still oversee the whole thing. Several of our advanced instructional designers would work on projects either for the Alliance or Regatta, depending on the need. And Regatta would then be positioned to succeed or fail on its own merit, but independent of what we're trying to do with the Alliance. It's going to be smaller projects. An insurance company comes to us, and what they're looking for is a virtual facility where the claims adjusters can come in and examine a car and determine and make decisions about what the cost of the damage is for the car and those kinds of things. That particular company, even though it's a global company, that's just a single demand, a single project. So to that regard, the company Regatta feels like a boutique. However, the thing about technology, what I've been writing most about VR is it's not just another technology for training like video was or Flash was. It is a new technology completely. And the hurdles that you have to go through to make sure that it is secure, that IT buys off, that you figure out how to distribute all the headsets, that you can keep the devices managed, that you can train all the people, it's really complex. And so what the Alliance is allowing me to do is to take all of those lessons that we've learned about how large organizations and enterprises adopt new technology and leverage that for Regatta. So, for example, we have within the Alliance, we have managed services. So basic, help desk and answering phones and hosting LMSs and those kinds of things that you'd expect. When we roll out VR at a large organization and they've got several thousand headsets out there, those people with the headsets need support. They need somebody they can call. They have to put instruments in place so that these people are constantly supported. Well, the group in the Alliance that have been doing that forever can now be leveraged to create programs that Regatta can use for their clients. So and for example, and also so for example, the guys that wrote the SCORM protocols and xAPI on the Alliance have been leveraged to make sure that not only is the data collected in the VR headset capable of coming into an LRS and an LMS, but there's a lot of other really cool data that we can track inside the VR headset. And so they're writing a custom framework for us that will allow us to pull the data out of the headset and convert it into xAPI calls, unique customized xAPI calls that can then be put into an LRS.
So on the demand side, on the client side, it seems to me like there is some appetite for some really big contracts, like KFC has their escape room fry cook training. Walmart has a pretty big VR training component, same with McDonald's. And then at the other end of the sector, what you've described before, kind of the insurance company going for the one-off. Do you think that that demand is going to fill in between these gaps?
That's a good question. I think that demand will fill in when the supply is there. I think that biting off the KFC project or something small, or going after the huge implementation are there. One of the things we're challenging ourselves with, these first programs we're putting together are upwards of $300,000 a piece. Not everybody's got that. So what we are challenging ourselves to do is how do we take the richness of what we're creating at that upper price point and enable us to put together medium-size, low-size implementations that still use the technology. Kind of, again, going back, I mentioned the one bank, how we stratified from very low to medium to high to super. We're forming agreements with at least 2 authoring tool companies that I really, really like. That allow us to do things that we used to only be able to do in custom Unity, be able to do those things faster, which is going to allow us to reduce the price. We're using because we're at the university here, we've got access to some amazing resources for video production at a fraction of the rate that you would get for commercial. So those are the things that we will be doing to try to fill that. And so I think that your mid-sized company that wants to do a couple VR programs will have a fighting chance of doing so once the suppliers and the solutions in that mid-range are available.
Now, it seems to me like Regatta is kind of working mostly in the soft skills. You all highlight sexual harassment training on your website. Are you doing any other work that kind of splits off from that? And have you, kind of chosen this as a focus?
Yeah, we will be doing work on the other end of the spectrum. I mentioned that the car for the insurance agency, the architectural engineering construction industry AECs, they refer to themselves. Is very interested, and that's all the hard skills, safety and those kinds of things. So we're not going to say no to that kind of work because it gives us a chance to really, flex our muscles and practice some new techniques, and we'll do that. But I do think that we found a sweet spot for ourselves. Our pedigree has always been that we're able to take these really complicated soft skills and find a way to effectively teach them online. The VR headset is allowing me to integrate some incredibly exciting and sophisticated techniques, as a result of that whole immersion aspect. And so I think that, it's going to be a strong area of ours because it fits for us. The sexual harassment, empathy, diversity, anti-bullying, those are the ones that are natural fits for us. Those will be the first real package courses that we'll put on the market. But then I want to drive it deeper because there's some real key areas where empathy matters, where you're either able to teach the individual and make a difference for them, or teach their families and make a difference for that individual. And we outline a couple of those on the websites, but PTSD, Alzheimer's, these areas where I really think we're going to be able to push this technology to a level where we might actually be able to make a difference in people's lives. And building the empathy programs and the anti-bullying and those things are giving us steps towards our ability to do that. And I think that's one of the more noble aspects of our mission that we have.
This has been Ed Technically. My name is Henry Kronk, and I work as the editor of eLearningInside. If you liked this episode, please rate and review it. If you would like to hear more, please subscribe. Also, keep in mind that this show is available as a video on our YouTube channel and also as a podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, and Google Play. The basic content for this video first appeared as an article on eLearningInside, and if you want to learn more about online courses, technology in the classroom, and EdTech in general, please be sure to check out our site. It's updated daily. If you would like to get in touch with me, send an email to henry@elearninginside.com. You can also follow us on Twitter @eLearningInside. Thanks for listening. Send an email